My mom chose her new family over me, but now she wants me to pay for my siblings' college and turn violent when I refused. I always thought I knew my mom, the woman who raised me, who tucked me in at night with promises of a bright future, who used to be my biggest supporter. But as the years went by, I began to see a different side of her. It wasn't something that happened overnight, it was a slow, almost imperceptible shift. And one day, I realized that the woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. I'm not sure when it started, but I can pinpoint the moment when it all clicked. It was when my mom married Steve, her second husband, and everything in my life changed. I had just turned 16 when they got together. I thought it was a phase, that it would blow over. I wasn't particularly thrilled about the idea of Steve moving into our house. He had his own kids, and frankly, I felt like he was taking my mom away from me. But I never imagined it would go this far. At first, it seemed harmless. Steve was nice enough. He was friendly, bought me a few gifts, and tried to show that he cared. But as time passed, I started to see the cracks in their relationship. It wasn't Steve I had a problem with, it was the way my mom was changing. She'd always been the rock in my life, the one who'd fought for me, who stood up for me no matter what. But with Steve came a new dynamic, one where I wasn't the center of her world anymore. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly, her attention shifted. She started prioritizing Steve's needs over mine. I wasn't allowed to voice my opinions anymore, and every time I tried to bring up something that was bothering me, she'd shut me down. "We're a family now," she'd say, like I was supposed to just accept it. And that's when I noticed it. My mom, who had always been so protective of me, began to push me aside for Steve and his kids. She didn't just push me out of her life, she completely replaced me. She started making excuses not to spend time with me, and her focus was always on her new family. It felt like she had abandoned me, like I wasn't enough anymore. By the time I graduated high school, I was no longer living in the same home with my mom. She and Steve had moved into a new house, and I was left behind. She insisted it was just for a while, that it was necessary for them to start fresh, but it felt like a betrayal. It wasn't until I came to terms with the fact that she wasn't coming back that I realized she was making her new family her priority. When I was on my own, struggling to figure out life, I didn't get a call from my mom. It wasn't until months later, when I was finally starting to stand on my own feet, that she reached out, asking for help. Not just a little help, but a lot. It started with a simple phone call. "Hey, I know it's been a while, but I need a favor," she said, her voice sounding almost too casual. She always sounded calm and collected, no matter how hard things were for her. "Your brother and sister are applying to colleges, and I need some money to help cover their tuition. You know how it is, things are tight with Steve's job situation right now." I was taken aback. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. I wanted to ask why she was turning to me. After all, she had chosen her new family over me. She had made it clear that I was no longer her priority. But I didn't say anything. Instead, I swallowed the lump in my throat and tried to focus on the request. "Mom, I don't have that kind of money right now," I said carefully. "I've been saving up for my own future, and I'm still figuring things out." But she wasn't hearing me. She just went on and on about how I owed it to them, how I was the only one who could help. "You know, I don't have anyone else to turn to," she said, her tone now more pleading. "They need this opportunity. And I need you to step up. I'm your mother, and you should be helping your siblings." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My heart pounded in my chest as I processed the words. "I'm your daughter," I wanted to scream. "Don't you see that I've been abandoned for years? Why should I pay for their college when you've turned your back on me?" But I didn't say that. I kept quiet, biting my lip as I tried to think of a way out of the conversation. The guilt started to settle in, making my stomach turn. My siblings were younger than me, and I had always been taught that family came first. Maybe that's why I couldn't bring myself to refuse outright, even though every part of me screamed that I had been wronged. I agreed to help. I told myself that I was just doing what I had to do. After all, they were family, right? But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about the money. It was about something much bigger, something I wasn't sure I could face. A week later, my mom called again. This time, it wasn't about money. "Sweetie," she said, her voice tight with anger. "You didn't give me what I asked for. I don't understand why you're being so difficult. I need you to step up. You're all I have left now." I could feel the tension building in her words, and I knew what was coming. This wasn't a request anymore. This was a demand. "I can't do it, Mom," I said, my voice shaking. "I've already given what I could. I'm not your bank." The line went dead silent for a long moment, and when she finally spoke, her words were laced with venom. "You're being selfish. You're no better than the rest of them." I felt a wave of shock, followed by something colder, something more terrifying. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. And then she said it. "You were never enough for me, and now you're just like everyone else. I'm done with you." It was like a slap to my face. My heart shattered as I realized that I had truly lost her. She was gone. The mother I had known and loved, the one who had cared for me, was no longer the same person. That was the moment I realized how deep the wound ran, how far gone everything was. I didn't know how to react, how to handle it. But one thing was clear. She had chosen her new family, and now she wanted to destroy me for not giving her everything. The weeks that followed were a blur of resentment, confusion, and growing anger. After that phone call, I didn't know how to process everything that had happened. My mind was racing. How could my mom, the woman who had always told me to stand up for myself, now be the one telling me I was selfish? How had she turned into someone who would use guilt and manipulation like a weapon? I tried to move on. I threw myself into work, started to focus on my own life, my future. But even as I buried myself in distractions, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next call or message from her. It was like a shadow I couldn't outrun. And then it happened up. I was sitting at my desk late one night, the soft glow of my computer screen reflecting in the window, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from her. I felt my stomach lurch as I hesitated before opening it. "I need to talk to you." That was all it said. Simple. To the point. I'd been avoiding her calls, avoiding the temptation to give in to whatever emotional manipulation she had in store for me. But this felt different. Maybe it was the final straw, the last bit of hope that I could somehow salvage what was left of our relationship. I took a deep breath and dialed her number. "Hello." Her voice was tentative, like she wasn't sure what to say either. "Mom," I said, my voice steady, but my heart racing. "What is it?" There was a pause, then a sigh. "We need to talk about this whole situation, okay? You're my daughter. I love you. But this isn't just about money. It's about family. It's about us, and what we're supposed to be." I felt a tightness in my chest, the words not feeling like they came from the woman who had abandoned me. "What do you mean? You can't just tell me you love me and expect things to go back to normal after everything that's happened." Her voice grew more defensive. "I'm not asking for normal. I'm asking for understanding. I'm asking you to step up. You've always been so strong, so independent. Why are you pushing me away now? Don't you want your siblings to have the same opportunities you had? Why can't you just help them? We're family." I could feel the tears burning in my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. I had spent so much of my life being strong for her, for everyone, and I wasn't going to break down now. Not for her. Not when she had made it clear she'd given up on me. "Mom, you don't get it, do you?" I said, my voice low but sharp. "This isn't just about money. You've spent years making it clear that your new family is your priority. You've chosen them over me over and over again, and now you're asking me to help them? You turned your back on me, and now you expect me to just forget that?" There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, almost like she was trying to gather the right words. Finally, she said, "I never meant to hurt you. I didn't want things to turn out like this. I thought I could have it all. I thought that by bringing Steve and his kids into my life, I could make everything better. But I see now that I've lost you, and I don't know how to fix that." I shook my head, fighting the urge to cry. "It's too late for that, Mom. You can't just walk back into my life and expect everything to be fine. You made your choice, and now I'm living with the consequences of it. I've had to learn to live without you. And now you're asking me to be a part of your new family to help the very people who replace me?" She let out a frustrated sigh. "You're being so stubborn. Why can't you just understand? Your siblings need help. They deserve a chance to go to college. Don't you want to give them that? Don't you want to be the one to help them get ahead?" It was like she was speaking another language. I wanted to scream, to tell her everything I had been holding in for years. That I wasn't a charity case. That I wasn't her backup plan. But instead, I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and said, "No, Mom. I'm not doing it." Her voice rose in anger, a far cry from the soft, pleading tone she'd started with. "You think you're so much better than them, don't you? You think you're the only one who matters. You think that just because you've managed to make something of yourself, that you're above helping your own family. I winced at the venom in her words, but I held my ground. No, I don't think I'm better than anyone. I just don't think I should have to pay for your mistakes. You chose your family, and now you need to live with the consequences of that. The phone line crackled with tension, and I knew that this was it. There was no going back. The woman I had called my mother, the woman I had tried so hard to love, was gone. And in her place was someone who was willing to tear me down for not bending to her will. You've made a huge mistake, sweetie, she said coldly. And when you come crawling back, don't expect me to be waiting for you. And then she hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand, feeling a sense of finality wash over me. It wasn't just a phone call. It was the end of an era. The end of any hope I had that my mom would ever choose me again. The days after that phone call felt like a strange kind of limbo. I had made my choice, but the weight of it was heavier than I had anticipated. There was no relief in standing my ground, no sense of victory. Instead, I felt a deep ache, like a hole that had suddenly opened up in the middle of me. The connection to my mom, to the family I had once known, was gone. And even though I had made the right decision for myself, I couldn't stop wondering what it all meant. I tried to distract myself with work, diving into projects that demanded my focus. But no matter how much I buried myself in spreadsheets and deadlines, there was always that nagging feeling in the back of my mind, like a bad taste I couldn't shake. It wasn't just the rejection I felt from my mom, it was the isolation that came with it. I had built a life for myself, yes, but what was it all worth if the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally were gone? The loneliness began to creep in, subtle at first, like a shadow in the corner of a room. I was used to being independent, but this felt different. I wasn't just alone in the physical sense, I was alone emotionally, too. I had no one to turn to, no one who could understand the storm that was raging inside me. I knew I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep wondering if I was making the right choices, or if I had somehow ruined my life. So I decided to reach out to someone who might be able to help. One night, as I sat in my apartment staring blankly at the TV, I pulled up my old therapist's number from my contacts. Dr. Lang had been the one person I could always talk to without feeling judged. She'd helped me navigate the chaos of my childhood, the years of emotional neglect, and the painful healing process. And while I hadn't spoken to her in months, I knew she was the person I needed now. I hesitated for a moment before hitting call. Hello. Her voice was warm, calming, like a familiar blanket on a cold night.
Hi, Dr. Lang.
It's me, I said, my voice unsteady. I know it's been a while, but I need to talk. There was a brief pause, followed by a gentle response. Of course. What's going on? I took a deep breath, feeling the tears threatening to spill as I tried to put my emotions into words. I think I messed up. My mom, she asked me to help my siblings with their college tuition. But I refused. And now, I think I've lost her for good. Dr. Lang was quiet for a moment, letting me speak without interrupting. She always knew when to listen and when to let the silence stretch out, allowing me the space to say what I needed to say. I know you're probably wondering if you did the right thing, she finally said, her voice soft and understanding. But from what you've told me, it sounds like you made a decision based on what's best for you. You set boundaries, and that's something we often don't do enough of, especially when it comes to family. I nodded. Even though she couldn't see me, I could feel the tension in my chest loosen slightly, her words offering a balm to the rawness I had been carrying around. I don't know though, I admitted, my voice shaking. I can't stop thinking about how she sounded when she hung up, like she was done with me.
And it hurts.
It really hurts, Dr. Lang. I don't know if I can handle the guilt. I understand that feeling, she said, her tone gentle but firm. But guilt is tricky. It can convince us that we're responsible for things we can't control. You didn't make your mom choose her new family over you. That was her choice. And it's okay to feel hurt by that. But you also have to take care of yourself. You can't keep sacrificing your own well-being for people who are not treating you the way you deserve. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I knew she was right. Deep down, I knew that what my mom had done wasn't my fault. But for so many years, I had internalized the idea that it was. I had believed that if I tried harder, loved more, or gave more of myself, things would be different. But they weren't. And now I had to face the truth. I couldn't keep waiting for someone who wasn't coming back. I had to let go. You're right, I said quietly, my voice thick with emotion. I don't know how to let go of her. How do I stop feeling like I'm the one who failed? You didn't fail, Dr. Lang said, her voice warm and steady. You did the right thing for yourself. And it's going to take time to heal, but that's okay. It's a process. You don't have to have all the answers right now. I wish I could believe that, I muttered, feeling the tears finally spill over. I just wanted her to choose me. I wanted her to be the mom I thought she was. But she's not, and that's hard to accept. I know it is, she said softly. And that's why I'm here. You don't have to go through this alone. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I wasn't alone in this after all. Maybe, just maybe, I could start rebuilding my life without my mom. Maybe I could find a way to heal from the wound she had left and create a future that was truly mine. Life seems like it will never be as simple as it once was, especially when your foundation is shaken. During that time, I often found myself lying awake in bed late at night, reflecting on all the things that had hurt me. I began to understand myself better, and I learned to be more patient with who I was. I knew that I couldn't rely on the people who had hurt me in the past to fill the empty spaces inside of me, especially when those people had never taken responsibility for their actions. Therapy made me realize something important. I wasn't abandoned by my mom because I did something wrong. The real issue was her choices and her irresponsibility. In the past, I would try to explain everything away by blaming myself, thinking that if I were just a better daughter, she would have chosen me over her new family. But now I knew that way of thinking wasn't healthy. I started to accept that fact and let go of my unrealistic expectations of her. I began to heal, little by little. You have to let go of the past to truly move forward, Mia told me once. Mia was a crucial part of my therapy, someone who helped me realize that the process of healing wasn't about fixing everything or even forgiving. It was about learning how to let go. We can cry over past pain, but we can't let it dictate the future. I started doing things I had neglected before, like picking up a paintbrush again, drawing the peaceful landscapes I used to love, or chatting with friends over a cup of coffee. But the road to healing wasn't always smooth. Sometimes, my mom would call me, asking me to help pay for my younger siblings' tuition, and I'd feel torn all over again. Once, I would have been the first one to rush to her side, to sacrifice whatever I could for the family. But now, I knew I couldn't do that anymore. Each time her call came through, I'd feel a deep weariness, not from the request itself, but from the assumption that I should always be the one to shoulder the burden. I had to learn to say no. I had to remind myself that I was not her backup. I was not her substitute. Time passed, and slowly, I started to let go of many of the things that had once weighed me down. I began to realize that forgiveness wasn't about letting people off the hook for their actions, but about releasing myself from the hold that those actions had on me. One day, my mom called again. She asked me to help pay for my siblings' school fees. This time, I didn't feel angry or helpless. I simply said, I understand that you need help, but I also have my own life. I can't keep carrying this responsibility for you. I'm no longer the person who will drop everything for you. The silence on the other end of the line felt heavy. I could hear her crying, and though I understood her helplessness, this time, I didn't budge. There was a part of me that felt guilty, but there was another part of me that felt a sense of relief. In that moment, I understood that real love wasn't about sacrificing everything for someone else. It was about learning to love myself, too. I started to redefine what family meant to me. It wasn't just about blood relations anymore. It was about the people who chose to stand by you, the ones who were there when you needed them most. It could be friends, a partner, or anyone you let into your heart. I had learned how to love myself again, and in the process, I had opened myself to the possibility of other kinds of love. I also began to realize that no matter how much I wanted it, my mom might never change. She might never understand what I had been through, and she might never apologize for her decisions. But that was okay, because I had let go of the burden of needing her approval, and in doing so, I was free. Life moves on, and so do I. With each new day, I'm building a future that's mine to create, a future that's free from the weight of old wounds. And no